Good afternoon, everyone. I'm David Talbot, Managing Director and Head of Research at Red Cloud Securities. I'm pleased to introduce EnCore Energy's Executive Chairman, Bill Sheriff, and CEO, Paul Goranson. EnCore has ISR uranium processing plants in Texas, projects in Texas, New Mexico, and is acquiring another one we'll talk about in South Dakota. So gentlemen, you have 10 minutes to discuss, and then we'll have a 5-minute Q&A session at the end. So attendees, please feel free to type your questions into the text box, hit that Q&A link. So take it away, guys.
Thanks, David. I appreciate it. Bill Sheriff here. I'll be making a brief presentation, and Paul Goranson, our CEO, and I will be available to answer the questions following it. We are focused entirely on U.S. ISR production and consolidation of the industry within the U.S. We'll be making forward-looking statements. Just a little bit of background. We've been around for quite a while, over 10 years. A number of our directors and myself came out of Energy Metals Corp, where I was a co-founder and chairman. We developed that between 2004 and 2007, selling out to Uranium One. Paul Goranson, our CEO, had a very good track as well. He'd been in the industry a number of years and then started Mustania Uranium, the Alta Mesa plant in Texas during that same time frame, from design to production in less than a year and less than 12 million US, and was one of the few producers to produce into the market. Paul also went on to be president of Cameco Resources, built the Nichols Ranch facility, an ISR mine in Wyoming for Uranerts, which was acquired by Energy Fuels. And then he joined our EnCore group, which had started in 2010, just last year. We're really glad to have him on board. So we are following much the model we had before, and that is mergers and acquisitions, although with a key emphasis on production. And the first transaction was picking up the licensed processing plants in Texas, 2 of only 11, which gives us a great head start, and turnkey production capability in Texas. We picked that up from the Westwater Resources. It was formerly the Uranium Resources portfolio. Also, we gained a large portion of the New Mexico Resources, the largest district in the US. But what we were missing were those key in-between stage projects. And those we fit nicely into our production pipeline with the announced acquisition of Azarga Uranium. Shareholder vote on that will be November 16th, and upon completion will provide us a series of pipeline advanced projects ready to go into production in the 2023 to 2025 timeframe. The company combined will boast resources of 90 million measured and indicated pounds, and that number will continue to go up as we continue to take our historic resources, which are of similar size, and convert those to 43-101. The company is very well positioned to benefit from the American nuclear renaissance and has an elite ISR team that we put up against any in the world. Two companies side by side looking at, we have roughly $20 million in cash, a market cap of roughly 500 million Canadian. Within that 20 million is a current physical uranium inventory of 100,000 pounds. We maintain this to ensure stability in terms of meeting our contractual obligations once startup commences. Brief overview of the lay of the land. You have our assets in South Dakota, Wyoming, New Mexico, and Texas. You'll note the one key takeaway here: Texas and Wyoming are agreement states, the last bullet point on your slide. This greatly facilitates and streamlines the permitting, as you're only dealing with the state agency, not the federal government. Don't have time to go through the ISR process. Suffice it to say, it's much more economic and environmentally friendly than conventional mining, and competitive with cost. Just going to highlight a couple of individuals on the board. I mentioned Paul and his background in the industry. Dr. Stover, our former CEO, was one of the original patent holders on the ISR process and has 6 patents to his name. Mark Paliza, 40 years in operations in ISR. And new additions will be Blake Steele, the CEO of Azarga, who will come to us as a strategic advisor, principally a liaison to the Asian markets, where he's established a very good following of Azarga and will continue to expand on that. Sandra McKay joins us from the Azarga board. She has a strong resource background in law, 10 years as Chevron's lead counsel in Canada, and 10 years in the uranium industry. So we're looking forward to augmenting our team and moving forward. Obviously, you've been aware of the headlines, so I won't repeat them. Suffice it to say, in the US, we have bipartisan support. The only thing we have bipartisan agreement on in the Congress, and that is nuclear energy. Has to be part of any green carbon conscious plan going forward. Against that, put the supply demand metrics that I'm sure you're aware of into context. 55 million pound a year deficit between primary production and the uranium that's burnt in the current plants. We've got that faced with 2 or 3 of the major mines closed in the last couple of years. And in the future plans, including construction and those plants that have recently been commissioned, 154 new reactors in the world, which will represent an increase of over 35% of the current consumption. Principal areas, obviously China, India, Middle East, Russia. Japan restarting is very big to the industry, of course, and also the former Soviet bloc Eastern countries, Eastern European countries are building very quickly as well. I want to mention a few of the Texas assets. The main assets are the Rosita processing plant in Kingsville. We were already underway in terms of a modernization effort at Rosita. It'll be under $1 million completed in Q2 of next year. So we're well down the road to doing that. Kingsville Dome's another plant that we'll look at bringing online later, but Rosita is the first one. Butler Ranch is a project that has significant historic resources, 1,900 drill holes, and we're in the process of doing a 43-101 on that. The Texas area in general has considerable undeveloped resources and is a very good base of operation. Obviously, very productive business environment. Both of these plants we were able to take control of were redone or renovated in the last uranium boom, with Rosita having a full refurbishment in 2008. So our modernization efforts are minimal, but important. These are modular and can be easily increased in capacity without any further permitting necessary. Both of them operate as central processing plants, which allows us a hub and spoke approach to satellite production. Part of the purchase was several satellite IX plants that are transportable. That is, we can move them from site to site and facilitate our hub and spoke approach. In addition to Butler Ranch, which has over 1,900 drill holes, we will be looking at the Upper Spring Creek project. This was previously licensed. We've acquired this and we'll begin licensing on that in the very near future. We also are actively looking at additional opportunities. The second in the pipeline is the Dewey Burdock project. This is one of the premier ISR resources in the country, sitting right on the South Dakota-Wyoming line in South Dakota. You can see the resource there, a little over 17 million pounds, great infrastructure. The PEA is robust, to say the least. This is a very good project, and I would call your attention to the low CapEx. This just illustrates the advantages of the ISR versus conventional mining. So, next on the pipeline after Texas and South Dakota, and quickly on the heels of South Dakota, comes the Gas Hills ISR project. Permitting has not begun here, but recall again, Wyoming is an agreement state, so we expect it to move along very quickly. Here again, slightly smaller resource, but in a historically active brownfields area. You can see the PEA on this is very robust as well, and we look forward to moving these in. Here again, this fills the pipeline from 2023 through to 2025, maybe 26. Longer term, we're looking at New Mexico. You can see we control over 50% of the New Mexico area. We call it America's Kazakhstan. It's certainly the largest endowment in the US, close to 1 billion pounds, including what's been mined. And we have a very big resource area here. And almost everything is ISRable. Anything that's not, we'll have to take a hard look at, maybe non-core. 43-101, this project here, Crown Point House Butte, is licensed by the NRC for up to 3 million pounds a year. We'll have to work with Laramide to move this forward, but a very important asset. We time our New Mexico assets in the 5 to 6 year time frame, possibly as long as 7. Here again, it's not an agreement state, so permitting is a bit more difficult. And also we have First Nation or Aboriginal nations that we need to deal with, and those efforts are underway. Here again, we think we'll be comfortable in the 5 to 7 year time frame, and already have a good pipeline of projects coming into play before that. So to summarize, we have plans to be, and we're well on the way to being, the premier ISR developer in the country. Industry-leading ISR team, vast experience, including the board plus 25 or 30 people in the field with operational and geologic expertise. 2 uranium production facilities fully licensed that are easily expandable. Pipeline of advanced development projects, control of the largest district in New Mexico for the long-term aspects, and a consolidation agenda that's time-tested and already underway. With that, I'll open it up to questions.
Great, thank you, Bill. So, your past producing ISR plants suggest somewhat of a lower risk profile. Does EnCore have enough uranium resources to feed those two plants in South Texas?
You may take that, Bill?
Yeah, I think it's probably your question there, Paul.
So the answer is yes. We're in the process of transforming, putting some resources into the permits to allow them to be operated. So the answer is yes. We'll have more than enough resources not only to start production, but to extend and continue production as we continue to add more processes. A good example is we talk about our Upper Spring Creek, which has got good known resources. We control the majority of the ore body, and it's already been previously licensed and permitted, so it's on an advanced track to be amended to the Rosita license.
Mm-hmm. And that's a new project for you as well, isn't it?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So when we pulled out of our database.
Yeah. How deep is that database? What databases do you have that you can access?
Bill's a big one.
Yeah,
I want to collect it. I'll let him answer.
Very, very extensive. We've got the Union Carbide Worldwide Database. Recall they were one of the premier uranium producers during the Cold War period. We've also got U.S. Smelting, which had UV Industries, another uranium producer. Significant portions of the Atlas database. All of these were U.S. producers. W.R. Grace. I could go on, and a number of individual collections. We believe it to be, short of Cameco and Kazatomprom and probably Orano, the largest database in existence.
And also oil and gas databases. I imagine you'd have access to those, and just
Yes.
Good number of those are publicly available or through well log services, so those are available. But we quite frankly, we've got so much data that there's still parts of it that we haven't taken full advantage of yet.
Yeah. Okay. So speaking of taking advantage of something, what attracted you to the Azarga project? It's not really in the same part of the U.S. that you guys are focused on.
No, but it really is. We clearly had projects in Wyoming ahead, and what we were really looking for was that third leg of the stool, if you will. We had the short-term turnkey opportunity in Texas, long-term enormous resources in New Mexico, but we needed something to fill in that production pipeline. And it fit like a glove, quite frankly, with the two advanced projects there.
Okay. And that acquisition, that proposed takeout offers at 71 cents, right? So what happens?
It's at a ratio of 0.375. So the two stocks have closed the gap, and they should trade relatively in tandem at this point going forth. Once the shareholder vote is held on the 16th, assuming all goes well and as is expected, the consolidation will be shortly thereafter. So as we near the shareholder vote, as is typical of these sort of things, the shares close that gap and tend to trade in tandem.
Okay, the arbitrage is going.
Correct. It's limited at this point. Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So you have plenty of uranium resources, various jurisdictions. Is there anything that you think you'd be able to get into production in short order now that we've got uranium prices approaching $50 a pound?
Well, we're going to put Texas into production. So Rosita will go on first, and then almost immediately with that will be the Upper Spring Creek project. That'll get us going, and that's targeted for 2023 production. And it times well with our initial uranium supply agreement we have in place, which has delivery starting in 2023 and continuing through 2028.
Mm-hmm. And are you looking to put out any more offtakes at this point? Is there any way to leverage that into project financing?
We are looking to extend additional offtake agreements. We'll time them out a little farther down when they come up down the pipeline, but yeah, so those help us with the project financing, so we can actually go out and look at getting direct financing rather than rely on equity to do it.
Perfect. Okay. Well, we're out of time on that, guys. So thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Up next, we have Alaska Uranium.
Thanks, David.